Rats at Team 45-45 League, analyzing the game between Truxton and King of Kings. This game was played in event Team 53, Round 1 of the Under 1800 section. Match score is 1.5, 1.5. So this is the decisive game of the match. What will happen? Let's have a look. Okay, so far main French. One of the earliest books I studied on the openings gave the advanced variation of, this variation of the advanced. The advanced actually comes one move earlier, and Black won the game, but it won it in a completely different manner than this game unfolded. But it remembered me, and I've kind of always had this skeptical thing about the move 4e5 as a result of seeing that game. What happened in this game, it was an old book written by Fred Reinfeldt. Black did center thrust of f6 and c5 and ended up with this center pawn majority, and the center pawn majority just ended up rolling up the board, and poor white got crushed. So supposedly it's not white's best line, and like I said, I've always had some kind of prejudice against it. I don't really know the lines because I don't play the French, and I don't play this as white. Okay, so you got me. If Queen G4 is book, I just don't know. But C5 is certainly thematic, and I guess one of the themes in this is to just undermine that white center, and that's Black's trump card in the French, is to be able to play C5. So you might as well get it in right now. F6 at this stage might be a little riskier, particularly when E6 hangs. So if Black's going to do that, he's going to have to prepare it. But right now this really starts undermining the white center right away. You can see there's certain threats on it. The pawn chain base is D4 here, and white doesn't have C3 available because his knight's occupying that square. So Black is threatening to take on D4 and start piling up on E5 with knight C6. So white has to step carefully here. He may lose that pawn right away. Anyway, the bishop takes the place of a pawn and tries to support D4. Okay, castles, and here's just Black's going about his business attacking D4. I don't know if F4 might be an option in this line. See, the idea of F4 is E5 can end up getting weak here, and actually that's exactly what's going to happen. So a move to consider might be F4, but Black shouldn't have anything to worry about, simply because he's pretty much rock solid on the king side. All of his pawns are on the original squares from F7, G7, and H7. So white really doesn't have a direct attack against white's king position. I'm sorry, Black's king position. And since white is elected to castle queenside, Black could try to do the same thing and tuck his king snugly away to the queen side. So the French has a lot of closed strategies to it. The position just gets locked up like here. So, and it's going to be long, drawn-out affairs to try to find some kind of an advantage for either side. But anyway, I don't know if F4 is playable here, but knight F3 also at the same time does guard those pawns. But do you want to be playing openings where you're guarding things? It's just a question. Not necessarily. See, if you just compare here, the knights, the white knight on F3 is guarding E4, E5, and D4. Well, sure, they're secure, but he's guarding them. He's not attacking anything. Now the black knights, they're attacking E5 and D4. They don't have a whole lot of mobility either, but at least they are attacking something. And most of the rest of the pieces on the board, the bishops really aren't attacking anything on either side, and the queens aren't doing all that much. Although the white queen for the moment is putting pressure on G7 and E6. Black can't move his king bishop too easily without having to give up a pawn or two, and Black can't push the thematic F6 because E6 hangs. So there's really not a heck of a lot going on here yet. The critical moves haven't come yet, but Black starts his plan of undermining the white center, and already to some degree, white's made some kind of concession right now. If black wants, he can secure the bishop pair with knight takes d4. Okay, so not saying that's good or bad, because having two knights in a game can't be all that bad. But the position's starting to open up just a little bit, so when the position opens up, it'll start favoring the bishops more. But the white light squared bishop's okay. It can get to d3, applying some pressure on h7, and you never know, it could have some potential bearing down on a6 at some point if white's able to regenerate some kind of an attack on the queen side. Everything's a long way off, but I don't know, it just seems to me like a lot of openings where one side just has to give up the bishop pair too early just by defending. It just seems like the opening itself is a failure, because white doesn't really have a whole lot of positional gains for giving up the bishop pair. But then again, black can just ignore that and not take it. But this is a good move. h5 is often a good move in French defense formations. It puts some pressure on the white queen, trying to get it off the squares it's attacking. So it's been eyeballing g7 and e6, and it can stay on one but not on both. So white has to make a commitment where to put it, h3, g3, or maybe even offer a queen trade with g5. And I really don't think queen g5 is any good, because black will just trade it and grab the e5 pawn. So white's pretty much left with g3 and h3. I suppose he could go to f4 too. Alright, let's see what he does. Okay, g3. Now, white's got three pieces defending that pawn on d4, but he's still got some pressure on g7, so everything isn't that bad. Okay, and this is a good move. White isn't poised to launch his pawns with an assault on the king side. Would maybe queen g3 or queen h3 last move might have been better. Then white could be playing g4 here, but that doesn't really help, because after pawn takes, black doesn't have to take. The pawn is pinned, or black could just take with the rook and hit the queen, and the white kingside pawns are isolated. So black's okay here. White really hasn't generated anything out of his opening, so it seems like 5g4, whether it's book or not, it seems like it's just not led to anything for him. Black's handled this fine. Okay, now, did white have to play that move right now? Okay, black was black eyeballing bishop h6 or check? I don't know. To some degree it seems like a waste, but then what else does white do? To play bishop d3, that's a developing move, and I've always said developing moves are okay, but black has a choice. He can take the bishop on d4, or he can play knight b4 and focus on winning the other bishop pair. So I don't know. White's ahead in development, but black is rock solid here, and that's one thing about a locked up position. You can be behind development, and since the other side can't do anything to pry you open, you can just stay solid and catch up in development and be fine. But white does have a few issues here. Aside from potentially dropping the bishop pair, that pawn on e5 is in danger of getting undermined. There's two pieces on it now, and there can be two more in a moment. The bishop can go to g7, and the queen can go to c7. White's got three pieces defending it, and he needs one more, but it's hard to see where that one more is going to come from. It's going to hard to get the rook on e1 without possibly surrendering the bishop pair. You see what I'm saying? The bishop has to develop. If it goes to e2, then the rook to e1, then drop the bishop back to f1, that's kind of slow. Well, let's see what happens. Okay, so now black's doing exactly what I said. He's eyeballing winning that pawn on e5, and how does white react? Okay, I'm not really sure if h4 does anything for white, other than attempt to somehow get the pieces aggressively posted towards the king side. I think black has just outplayed white here in the opening and is going to win that pawn hands down. And it'll be apparent here in a moment. And here white has all this development, but it's not going to lead him anything. Both sides have two minor pieces out, and white's advantage is his queen's developed and his rook's developed, and black isn't. His whole entire queen side is a mess. But because e5 is weak, black's coming out of this okay. It's kind of amazing how chess works like that sometimes. And here a third piece attacking it, and how does white bring anything in else to defend it? He doesn't. Black's just going to win a clear pawn here. And so it's up to white to try to generate something. That's what he does try to do. Queen f4. But the queen could have gone there earlier, so maybe white's admitting he's lost a tempo. Now I guess white's eyeballing playing knight g5 and taking on f7. But anyway, black just takes the pawn with a tempo on the queen. So pretty much white needs to take, otherwise he's going to drop the exchange too. And black just offers a queen trade, says, let's trade queens, and I'm going to be a pawn ahead. And white can ill afford that, so he's got to back the queen up. Now, just in a few short moves, black has not only won a pawn, but he's almost caught up in development, and he's going to be caught up here very, very quickly. That queen side of black's will get into play here real quick. So white's down a pawn. He's got to try to gain some space. f4 does attack that centralized queen, but at the same time it takes away some squares from white. But how's white going to follow up here? White doesn't really have a clear, cohesive attacking plan on the king side, so he tries to generate something. And here we go. And offering another pawn, and black just takes it. And there's nothing wrong with taking it. Black is rock solid here. White doesn't have enough of an attack, so he's just kind of like trying anything to complicate, and black just secures that extra pawn. So black's 2 pawns ahead. The fact that he's a little behind in development still doesn't matter. White can't get anything else into play here. His king bishop on f1, where's it going to get into action? All those pawns on the white squares are solid. So white's only thing here maybe is to try to play h6 and keep the center locked and hope that h6 pawn becomes a factor later. That's probably his only chance here. It's the only thing I can think of, because what he does is just going to run out of gas here real quick. He gets an open h-file, but black can cover all those threats easily enough, and there he's done it. And how's white going to progress here? It's just very difficult. And so I guess white felt obligated to try one more thing, and really this is just the losing move. White does get some play, but he doesn't have anywhere enough to justify giving up a whole rook for a couple pawns, because those are the 2 pawns he sacrificed. And all this has done is open up the board so that now the black pieces that were cramped can quickly get into play. And that's true, the white's remaining pieces have some scope now, but they just don't have enough to compensate for being a rook down. So black just improves his position, offers a knight trade, which black must decline. And then finally the black is just about to complete his development, and he's a whole rook ahead here. And white's lost. So white sacrifices another piece, and black just happily takes. And he gets a nuisance check, and black's going to have to give up back in exchange. But can white really take it? No, he can't, because he's still going to be 2 pieces down. So it seems that white's sacrifice was just in desperation, hoping something would come of it. And black just happily hunkers down and makes a solid position, a fortress here that white can't penetrate, and eventually attrition is going to wear white down. That's it. So that pawn is now a serious threat, and there it's getting ready to queen, although it's not getting ready to queen just yet, but I guess white felt obligated to block it. And now black just breaks the pin, so if you don't take my rook, I'm going to save it. And white just goes about his way and generates some threats, and black does exactly what I said. He saves his rook. And really, white didn't have a way to capitalize on that. If queen h3 check, just bishop h7, and black's crawling all over c2, and I guess white realized that before black could move, white decided to resign. So, like I said in the beginning, it's not the best line to play against the French. I don't know it because I was scared away from it when I was a teen, and I guess it's just another reason why it's not a good line, although I'm sure somebody could beg to differ with me and show me some very nice games with it. You never know until you study openings, how much one opening will be worth and how much it won't be. Well, great game, King of Kings. Truxton, you gave it your best shot. We have to admire you for at least being willing to sacrifice some material to give it a try, and I thank everybody for their time. Take care.